Welcome to Grow Black Leaders,
your go-to source for all things leadership, growth, and development.
for Black leaders, by Black leaders. Let's grow. Welcome to the Grow Black Leaders podcast, where we exist to create a community, a space, right? An opportunity to gather Black people together so that Black people can cultivate, or Black leaders, can cultivate Black leaders. Look, we understand that leadership is complicated. It is complex. And when you add Black to that, there are some specific nuances that come along with being Black and leading. So we've organized these conversations to help you to grow in your leadership capacity on your leadership journey. And I am excited about today's interview. Aren't you excited?
Definitely excited about today's interview.
Yes, we have joining us today, Kayla Wanakee, and she will give you more information on her name. I think she needs to tell that story, but Kayla.
That's a great story because it was funny because before we were coming on, we were trying to guess how to say the name. So if you don't mind, please letting them know the story or any information you want to give them about the name.
Absolutely. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hey.
I'm Kayla Wanakee. My mom named me Kayla off of a soap opera, Days of Our Lives. Okay. But it means pure love. And then my father wanted my middle name to be Wanakee. And everybody's like, Wanakee, like, what is that? And it means faith and peace. So it just kind of goes hand in hand with who I really am. They didn't know how I was going to turn out, but it fits. Okay. And so, that's my name. And Wanakee is actually my middle name. So I go by my first and middle name as far as my stage name. But that's my name.
Like that story. And you know what? Names really do matter. Like, you got to be careful what you're naming your kids because you really are prophesying over them. Now, I didn't come to preach today, but the preacher gets stirred up every now and then. Kayla, we're so excited to have you. I know that a lot of your audience are people who are coming into the knowledge of who you are. They're getting to know you because you have been this voice, this energy, this presence at this extremely large women's conference. Shout out to Sarah Jakes Roberts and the Woman Evolve movement, not even just the conference, the movement that's happening. You've been center stage at that conference. As host, you get the room together, you bring the energy, the life, and it's really a vital role that I think sometimes people don't even understand totally how much you need someone who can cultivate the space where people get comfortable so that they can receive whatever's about to happen. Now, I know a lot of our listening audience, they may be familiar. Some of them may be listening today because they know you and they're like, my girl, Kayla, she out here doing that. I'm about to tune in to support her. But you also have some listeners who are tuned in today who do not know you just yet. So if you would, over the next few moments, can you tell us who is Kayla Wanakee?
Well, that's so complex. Well, as far as my hosting, yes, I am the traveling host and MC with Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. Shout out to her.
Yes.
I've been with her since the very beginning of Woman Evolve, which was 2018. And so I do tour and travel with her. But in addition to that, I was an educator for 14 years. Now I'm a special needs advocate. It's a population that is I'm very passionate about. It means a lot to me. And so I use all of my education, resources, supports to help families with children with special needs. I'm also an actress and model, just newly signed to a talent agency in Atlanta, LA, New York, and Chicago. So very grateful for that.
Congratulations.
And I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a friend. I would describe myself as like the ultimate homegirl. Like, I ride for my girls, period. Okay. No offense to you, Ronaldo. Like, I love my kings. You know what I'm saying? I love my kings, but I ride for my girls all day. So
all right. Period. And that's on that. Now, first of all, I'm going to shut up because you done stirred my wife up. You going to come out here talking about being an educator and all kind of stuff. I'm going to shut up.
First of all, the fact that you said that you were educated for 14 years, because I am previously an educator for 15 years and recently transitioned out of the classroom a couple of years ago. And just to hear the correlation between the two, because it's like mind blowing to hear how you had the courage, which I think that's going to be like first question.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the conversation.
how did you have the courage to make that leap or that transition from being an educator to really following your dreams and doing what it is that you set your heart out to do? Because it's like, and when I hear you talking now, I was like, man, she is like taking over, conquering the world. But I know it took a lot of courage to be able to take that jump. So what was that journey like for you?
Woo, child. It was a journey. Like, seriously, from one educator to another, that is one profession that once you get into it, because it's a very gratifying job. You're able to really reach back and pull forward the next generation. And so when you're in it, it's something that people don't often transition out of. You might transition up, like go from an educator to a principal to a superintendent, something like that. But for me, I've always been an entertainer at heart. I've always been in love with the arts. I'm a dancer. I always acted from a time I was a young child. I love to talk, love to entertain people. And so it was just something that was always pulling at me to always really tap into my desires as far as the arts and entertainment and just see where God would take me in it. But ultimately, when I was teaching in Los Angeles, so now I live in Atlanta, but I did live in Los Angeles for 8 years. And so while I was there, I was able to kind of tap in to the other parts of me. So while I was teaching, I was still dancing and I was doing background dancing and teaching at the same time. And then as far as hosting, I had never hosted anything before. Like, let's be clear. Okay, so when I started hosting with Sarah, I was not a part of the women's ministry. I did not do the announcements at church. Like, I was just a girl that I was on the praise team as far as like praise dancing, but that was it. And when she came up with this conference, like I said, I ride for my girls. So she's in a meeting and people start talking about like me. Like, I'm just like somebody that they thought I would really relate to the women and things like that. And so when she asked me to do it, I'm like, bruh, like the most I've ever spoken in front of is like 30 people. You know what I'm saying? 30 little kids at that. Nevertheless, her first conference was like 3,500 people. And I'm like, Lord, if you're leading me through it, you're going to see me through it. Okay.
Come on.
So
Right.
I jumped in there and the first conference was me and 2 other girls. So I was like, okay, we kind of evening this out. And then after that, she was like, okay, so it's just me and you out here on these streets. Like, you going on tour with me. We about to be out here. And I'm like, okay. So that kind of helped give me the confidence because I had the experience working with her while teaching. I had the experience of dancing while teaching. And so I was just like, I'm just going to jump 10 toes down into it because I really wanted it. I wanted it bad. And it's something because even though I made that transition, you have no idea how many times I was like, I'm about to go back to teaching. Because baby, like, that steady check coming in, okay, and that's not, okay, and you just leaning on the Lord to bring these opportunities in. It's tough out here in these streets. And so it was a lot of times I'm like, bro, I'm about to go back to teaching, but it was just something that was telling me like, God has something for you on the other side. And honestly, I had just got to my breaking point right before a conference this year where I was like, listen, if something don't pop, because I stopped teaching in 2021. So I was like, if something don't pop, okay, I'm about to go back to teaching. And God knew that I was at my breaking point because right after conference, it was like blessing after blessing after booking after booking. And then I got signed and it was just all these things on the other side of it. So I'm glad that I stood firm in my faith and belief that he brought me to it because I feel like the reward was in my obedience not to give up on my faith in it, but yeah.
You better talk your talk. I love this story. Like, I'm already ready. This thing that stirred me up. I didn't plan to be like this. First of all, and then you talking about she taking over and then it was like my ratchet just came up and I just heard taking over for the 2000. Like my ratchet it just came up like out of nowhere. I was like, oh, I feel ratchet. I mean, first of all, I just feel like I don't even belong in the conversation today because I feel like you and Kayla are on a similar journey.
I mean, I hear, first of all, the fact that you talked about how you were almost on the brink of going back to teaching. I recently was just preaching on Sunday and I talked about what it's like to just go back to what's comfortable when things get hard, when things get tough. And it seemed like, and I paralleled it to Lord, I feel like I'm about to preach now. The children of Israel. It's listen, and how it's like they romanticize the past or what it was like when they were in Egypt. And I felt like that was where I was. Like, I'm going back and thinking about, well, maybe I should go back to teaching. But it's like I forgot about what it was like when I actually was doing it. It would really compel me to transition out of it. But the common thing of what I heard you say is just you kept going and you didn't quit. And I feel that many leaders are out there that are on a journey where they really want to quit. They want to give up, but it's like you have to keep going in spite of the challenges, in spite of the difficulties, in spite of those very hard times. And even when you get uncomfortable and when you, and it's perfectly normal to feel like you want to go back to where you came from or to what was comfortable. But just when you're on the brink of a breakthrough, that's when it seems to be your hardest. But on the other side of that.
Yes. I mean, the reality is part of leadership is how you manage feeling overwhelmed. So how well I handle being overwhelmed, that's a part of leading. And we all have that feeling at times. I don't care how great of a leader someone is. Trust, they have moments, plural moments, that they feel completely overwhelmed with the size and the scope of what they've been given. I love the other part of your journey that I love is that, I feel like you gave yourself an opportunity to jump into new things by keeping your options open. You were like, I was doing a little bit of this, I'm doing a little bit of that, I'm trying this. And now you have different areas you can run into. To the person that's listening and they've been told over and over again, because people do this, you just need to find one thing and stick with it. And that can be complicated for someone who's been gifted with multiple different areas that they do well. And they're trying to follow the advice of those who are saying to them, you just need to get in one lane. And that's not connecting. They're feeling like I have to give up something I really enjoy in order to get in one lane. Can you talk to our listeners? Just give them some Kayla words of, I love how she talked, by the way.
That's why I love the energy.
Yeah.
I love you being
big comment, okay? Tell them, talk to them. Yeah. Tell them Kayla's wisdom on this thing. Absolutely. Or how they handle the multiple gifts and being able to explore them.
Absolutely. So I think that we've all ran across people like that. And I believe that those people that do ask you to stay in that one lane, they are coming from their cynical scope. Like maybe in their life, they needed to only focus on that one thing in order to fulfill their, journey or their fullness or the assignment on their life. But that does not speak to every person. One thing that I've learned and the wisdom that I lead by is that everybody has their own unique journey. Some people can do multiple things in excellence all at the same time simultaneously. And that's what's their assignment. That's what they're gifted to do. And then there are some people that do just need to focus on one thing because they can't get excellent in all things. And they need to just focus on that one thing so that they can be excellent in something. Okay. And so for me, what I've realized is like what God is doing in my life is what he's doing in my life. So when I feel the desire, when I feel the need to step into something, if I'm stepping into something and it's not just teaching, but I'm also dancing or I'm also acting or I'm also modeling, he has graced me for that. He has given me the expertise in that. He's given me the skill set for that. And so I choose to really, throughout my entire journey, block out the noise of others and really tap into what God is telling me. Like, it's very essential in order to live in your fullness, not to be able to just sit and listen to all the other people, because they're only speaking from their experience. That's what happens. Like, my family was so upset when I walked away from teaching, because they're like, what? Like, you excel at that. Like, I was outside of the classroom. Like, I was no longer teaching. I was a resource specialist. So I was helping other teachers in the general ed classroom with like accommodations, modifications for special needs kids. Like, I was climbing the ranks, and I was very much graced to do what I did in that. But there was so much more in me. And I'm so grateful that I stepped out on those things, because the passion that I have for the special needs community will never go away. So wherever God takes me, I'm still going to advocate for them. I'm still going to speak on their behalf. I'm still going to try to give them the resources and things that I can. And because I chose to step out, my resources are greater. The support is greater. The platform is bigger. You know, it's so funny. One of my friends, he's a pastor down here, and he's watched my journey throughout it all. And he was like, you know what? You're still teaching. The classroom just got bigger. And always sticks with me, because he's right. Like, I'm still out here doing the best I can to pour into whoever I'm talking to, whatever I'm doing. It's just on a larger scope. And so to those people that are listening, that have had people try to put them in their own journeys and what they feel is right for them, gracefully let them know, respectfully, that might be what God is telling you to do. And you should continue to stay in your one lane. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap into what he done gave me. Okay. And I'm going to step out on what I believe that he's graced me for. And you can watch. I can let you watch better than I can tell you. So I'm going to just let you watch this journey, and then you continue to live in whatever you got going on over there.
You are talking so good today. And let me tell you, it is so important that you learn how to sift through and sort through the noise. I was talking Sunday at church, actually, and I said to the room that the scale is rarely balanced in a room full of opinions, right? And then I said, just because they can't see it doesn't mean that God didn't say it. The reality is, when we walk into a room full of opinions, we are rarely ever going to end up in a balanced scenario. And of course, I know Sunday, this woman, she was preaching, she preached Sunday. And so she was talking about the story of Moses sending out the spies. 10 came back with a negative report. Mm-hmm. Only 2 came back with a good report. Now they all saw the same thing. Yeah. And they were sent to see what Moses had told them would be there. They all put their eyes on the exact same thing, but they chose to receive it differently. And the majority, the popular opinion, was the one that was contrary to what had been spoken. And I think a lot of times we miss out on our opportunities in life because we've allowed the volume of the wrong voices to be turned up. And it causes us to look to the left or to the right and to look away from what we've been promised instead of moving forward. I'm telling you, she got us stirred on here today, huh?
It's good. It's so good not to allow people to put their experiences on you.
Yes.
I love the fact that you said to take your own experiences and allow that to be that. Thank you for that advice. Thank you for what you're trying to share with me, but your story is not my story.
Yeah.
So just because that worked for you may not mean that it's going to work for me.
Yes.
But to go back to what all the different things, and by the way, I love that you are a special needs advocate, because I feel that that is a community that many times may not have the loudest voice. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like we focus on so many other initiatives and so many other people, but even just being in a seat of an educator, how many of those children can be forgotten about. They do not have people to advocate for them and to speak up for the things that they need. And many of them just slip through the cracks, fall by the wayside, go on years and years and years and years without their needs being addressed. And it just becomes a whole situation whenever they really become older. So I absolutely love, love, love that. But I wanted to, you name so many different things that you do. You say you were a wife, you are a mother, you dance, you act, you host, you do all of those things. So I wanted to ask you, how do you balance all of those things? Or what does balance look like?
That's a good one.
For you? Because people are juggling a lot. So how do you do it?
You know what? That's such a good question, because even though I look like I'm 20, sis is a little older. And balance for me has been seasons that God has allowed me to do those things. Like, it didn't all happen simultaneously for me. Some women are able to be the wife, the mom, the entrepreneur, the minister, the this, the that. They're able to do it all at the same time. And sis, you better. Okay, you better. But for me, in my journey, it wasn't always simultaneously happening like that. So I had my kids pretty early. I was 25 when I had my son. I'm in 27 when I had my daughter. So at that time, I was just being the teacher, and I was a dance coach and a mom and a wife. Like, that's what I could juggle during that time. That allowed me to be present with my kids. It allowed me to give excellence to my job. It allowed me to still be able to work in my passion of dancing. And it worked out. You know, I taught from 7 to 3. I coached from 3 to 6. My kids just got out of daycare. We pick up the kids. We all in with the kids. And then we start over the next day. But at this stage in my life, where I am able to do many things at one time, my kids are older. So now my son is getting ready to be 15. My daughter is getting ready to be 13. So now I've been able to be hands-on in those seasons with them, give them the attention they needed, able to do all the things I needed to do at the house, set a routine. So now I'm able to venture out and do more things outside of the house. I travel a lot so I can be absent, because they understand the expectation now. They understand what they have to do. We have routines put together. So for me, I've just allowed the seasons to lead me to what I'm able to juggle in an excellent way, versus trying to push myself to do all the things, because that's what you see. That's what you see on social media. You see all these women that are the wives, the moms, the super entrepreneur doing 101 million things. However, you know, you don't know how present they're able to be in their children's lives. You have no idea if the granny living in the house with them, if they got the nanny doing all the picking up and the dropping off. But I was there for that, you know? And so instead of comparing, like, or being hard on myself because I wasn't able to do all the things, even though my heart wanted to do all the things, even though I wasn't able to do it, God had a season for me for that, you know? And I mean, all of that comes in retrospect and through living and wisdom and things like that. But that's the biggest thing, not trying to be anybody that I can't be, not trying to balance more than I really can balance. Even if I want to do all of the extra things, I have to understand that there will be a season for that. You know, like raising these kids right now for me, it was important that I was the one dropping them off. It was important that I was the one helping with the homework. It was important that I was the one sitting there having the conversations with them versus having a babysitter do it. You know, like that was something that was important to me. So in retrospect, I'm able to speak that way. I know the pressures that we all have watching the next woman, because it's like, well, I can do it too. You know, but it goes back to understanding like everybody has their own journey. And Dr. Anita, I met her. I'm not sure if you know who Dr. Anita Phillips is, but she is brilliant. And I am her adopted goddaughter. And when I met her, I was in a season when I wanted to do more than what I was doing. I was teaching at the school, but because I was living in Los Angeles, I really wanted to dive deep into acting and dancing and doing all the things, but then having the kids there. And she told me something so profound in her wisdom, just saying that like we have so many lives that we are going to live throughout this journey, and we want to do it all right now. But she was saying that when she was 20, she was at home with her kids and just being the therapist. But then by the time she got into her 40s and her kids got older, that's when she became the Dr. Anita that we all know and love today. And even though she saw that vision for herself in her 20s, God had it already planned in her 40s. And then, now she's journeying into her 50s and 60s. And so now the kids aren't even in the house anymore. And she's able to live in this fullness and be sitting with Oprah and traveling all over the world. And, her kids aren't missing out. But when she was 20, she was looking at her journey thinking all the things she wanted to do that she couldn't do because she had the kids, not knowing what God had for her later on in life. So it's like, live this journey. Whatever he has for you right now, just be great in that. And if there is a desire in your heart, trust that that time will come and it'll be perfect timing for just that. So
I love it. It's like
It's good.
you're managing seasons and you're managing your seat in the story,
yeah.
right? Where you are right now,
Yeah.
like even when you're married, understanding who does what and when, like what things look like for us along the way. There was a lot of, we both went back to school while we've been married, had kids. We planted a church from the ground up. I was pursuing my career in the financial arena. God is blessed. I'm on my third assignment of being hired as a CEO. My wife supporting that. And even as she started to evolve and decide, well, I want to do this next. One of the things I always told her, and one of the things we've committed to is that we're going to be each other's champion and cheerleader, but also that we will support where each other happen to be and that time and what we want to do. And we keep our promises. This woman definitely made me make a promise to her, Kayla, that I was going to work her out of that job. So she was like, she said, I don't want to be on this job. Okay. So I'm going to support you, sir. But in supporting you, you going to work me out of this job so I could do what I want to do. And I did that thing, right? So season, understand your seat in the story. That thing bless you. How you felt it? You felt a wave off with your name. I want to ask this question. And I was telling my wife before we did this, I said, I'm going to ask her this question because I feel like there are a lot of listeners listening that will resonate with this in particular. So you have a plethora of things that you do. But one of the things that you do is you are the host for Woman Evolve. That is a leadership role, whether or not you are telling people what to do, ordering people around per se, some of the traditional things people think of when they think of leaders. And we've certainly tried to challenge that on this podcast by saying leadership is about influence. It's not about position. But in that scenario, number one, and we're going to come back to, because in a few, we're going to have to ask her what it's like when you walk in that room. What are you thinking when you're getting that audience going? But we'll come back to that. I want to ask you, how do you embrace your leadership assignment in a bigger story, right? So when you look at Woman Evolve, obviously God gave Sarah a vision to reach many women. And I believe generationally, she's one of the best to do it. She's done an amazing job in our generation leading women, not even just women, because even men are following what she's doing, but she's allowed herself to lean into what she's doing with women. But she's seen as that top leader. This is her vision that you're coming inside of and executing your leadership responsibility so that the complete vision can live and live well. Talk to the person that's listening that struggles, because one of the things that I've seen is people try to assign weights to their leadership responsibility, and they can allow their minds to begin to think that their particular part of the entire vision is insignificant when it is really very significant. Yeah. So what would you say to the leader who's leading within a vision about how to execute their role well, not lose sight of the complete vision, right? And how to see their particular thing through to success so that the whole vision succeeds?
Well, okay. So for me, the type of leader that I am anyways, because even when I was like thinking about this, I'm like, grow black leader. Grow black leader. Am I a leader? You know, like I had to like think about it for a minute, right? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm actually am a leader because anything that I do, I end up in a leadership type position. But I
Yes.
think because my form of leadership is a servant leader, I've always like poured into the greater picture. So I've always been the person that if I see a need, I'm going to help to fulfill it. Or if I see a void, I'm going to find a way to, you know, put something in place. Like I've always been the type of leader to empower those around me to all live in our excellence for the greater vision of whatever we're trying to accomplish. So for me, it just kind of comes natural. So what I would say to the person that may be feeding into a vision and they have a role of leadership is to whatever your role is, bring excellence to that. Bring your best to whatever your position is, whatever that is. If it's being the host or MC, for me, I know her greater vision. I know that she wants every woman to feel loved and accepted and seen. That is the bottom line to Woman Evolve. And so because I ride for my homegirls, that's all I'm thinking about is finding a way for that girl in the very back of the room that just left the club, that ain't never been to church before, for her to see herself in this room and that she belongs here. Like that's what I'm always thinking about, or I'm trying to find a way to elevate. So as she elevates and as she grows this vision, then I take it upon myself to figure out, God, what can I bring to make the environment feel more like leveled up? Like how can I do something original, new, you know, that'll make everybody feel loved and welcome and have a good time, but also leave inspired, empowered, heart posture set. Like, what can I do? And honestly, in a position like this with someone like Sarah, I have to really lean into God. And I've really become like one with my Holy Spirit. Like now I truly understand that my Holy Spirit is in charge of the moment. Like when you deal with something on that level, you never know what you're walking into. Like we've walked into some rooms where the hearts are so hard, they sitting there like, and what you
like, what you here for?
I know.
ain't me, you know what I'm saying? Or where is Jesus? I don't feel him, bring him to me, you know? And so when you're in those situations, it's like, Lord, I need you. Like, give me the words, tell me what to do. Like, it's so many times we've had to like freestyle and just do whatever the room called for. And my spirit was already equipped for it. My spirit had already walked in the room before I got there and knew what I was about to come up against and already graced me for the moment. So I just think that, you know, no matter what you're pouring yourself into, bringing excellence to the table in the best way possible is the way to serve the greater good. And it's also the best way for you to become the best leader. Because in actuality, when people see you being so confident in whatever role that is, even if it isn't a name attached, but you bring excellence to it. Like I love when I go to like churches, and I don't know if you guys call them the ushers or the PMTs, they all have new names. Okay. But the people that are serving, when you walk in and you could just see like they love to serve. They want to be here. They want to empower you. Like, even though they might not have a leadership name or title, that's a leader to me. Because if somebody else sees you loving on somebody, complimenting somebody, you know, being a joyful spirit, that's contagious. That makes other people want to be great too. That makes other people want to tap into the love of Jesus too. And so I just think bringing excellence is the best way to be the best leader. It's not necessarily like having the title and the best way that you can delegate or dictate what to do. It's more so like leading with your actions. Leading with your actions. And I think being under someone like Sarah, she is a great example of that because she's in the trenches of everything. You would think over a ministry that big that she was just putting people in position and like, okay, they gonna handle that. Negative. Okay. She's there for it all on every level.
Keeping our heart in it.
And so
Yeah.
having somebody like that too also like lets you know, like lead through your actions, lead at how, the best way that you can do this position.
That's good. That's good. So to ask you the flip side of that question, what have been some of the challenges that you faced or that you've encountered leading within a greater vision? Because I'm sure that sometimes it can be a little difficult leading within a greater or overall vision. What could you say has been maybe a challenge that you've experienced and how you've overcome leading within a greater vision?
You know what? That's good. For me, I think a lot of times people looking at what I do as not as significant, or that the weight isn't as heavy. Like they don't understand that walking on the front lines, I'm the first person to hit the stage. And I have an assignment to set this atmosphere for this powerhouse that's coming behind me. And, being in situations where, people don't understand that it's a ministry, so like I need my private time too, like I need a space that I'm able to, get my heart postured and, pray over the situation, being covered before I go in. Like, that's a big thing because since I'm pre-show, I don't get a chance to be a part of like the prayer huddle. So everybody else is like the worship singers and every speaker that's going to come on the stage, but I have to cover myself. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody is getting ready during the time I'm on stage. So those moments have been a challenge, if I'm honest, because sometimes you feel like, you're not seen, or you feel like people just look at it like, oh, you just up there having fun and doing announcements, And it's like way more than that, because you don't even realize in order to get to this fun, I had to figure this out. Okay. Like I had to figure out what I'm doing. Nobody tells me what I'm doing. That's another thing. Sarah trusts me to come up with different ideas or whatever I'm going to do to set the atmosphere. And like I said, some of this, our movement is comprised of women of all walks of life. So for instance, if I knew I was just walking in the church, you can get up there and just start halfway preaching, praying the house down, and then everything is good. But because we're walking in this movement, and I don't want to lose the woman that has never walked in church or be above her head where she feel like, well, I ain't speaking in tongues and I don't know none of these scriptures, so I don't belong here. I have to find unique ways to bring all of the women into the room. And so those things are difficult, and then you're talking in front of thousands of people that ain't there to see you. Okay.
Come on.
They don't
Come
even
on.
know who you are. Okay. They are here to see Sarah. And so, just having the people around you, that you're traveling with, or people that are in authority outside of the main person, right? Because like she understands the role. But when we travel, we're with the tour group. And so just having people to really understand that what you do is a ministry, I think that has been, it was a great challenge for me. I had a moment this past year at Woman Evolve. At the end, I was just about to say, bye, everybody. Like, I love y'all. Y'all were great. And I end up crying on stage. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a whole moment because they loved on me so heavy. Like, I just felt overwhelming love from every single woman. And being in a position like an MC or a host where you don't even get publicized, that meant a lot to me. It meant a whole lot to me. And then, Sarah made this whole post about me, and it was just a big thing, but it was like, wow, God, like, still bringing excellence to the table in spite of not being covered before you go on stage, or feeling like people don't recognize you, but still showing up in excellence and gratitude. Like it all came back tenfold. And so I'm so grateful that God has allowed me to see the bigger picture and to be able to pour into the ministry regardless. So even if it is a challenge, my Holy Spirit had me held down. And, and now I'm in a situation where even when I don't have to speak, God still speaks my heart out to those around me. And so that meant a lot to me.
That's good.
I love it. 2 questions as we land. Man, I wish we just had unlimited time because our conversation with you is so dynamic. But 2 questions as we land today's interview. Number 1, all right, you just got finished hosting. First of all, you talk about the fact that you transitioned out of teaching and all of these evolutions that you've gone through. You just wrapped up Woman Evolve. I just want to hear you talk about, you walked into a room of 40,000 women. What in the world is going through your mind at that moment? Because I'm sure when you left teaching, you're not thinking, in a couple of years, I'm going to be on stage in front of 40,000 women. So what are you thinking in that moment when you walk in that room?
So if I could just tell you, first off, pulled up and my hotel room was facing the stadium, right? So the day before, when nobody else was in the stadium, I look over there and I'm like, bruh, I'm not going in there until it's time to do what we're doing, because it was so intimidating. It was huge. And just to put context to it, Woman Evolve, our biggest event would probably be when we go to Chicago when we're on tour. It's close to 8,000. Okay. So that's as big as we've ever gotten. So to go from that to 40, okay, that's a whole different ball game. So at
whole lot of extra.
Listen, okay, like the levels. It was like it was a leap. It wasn't just levels, It was a leap. So at first I was like, I'm not going in there. Like, this is too much. But to tell you the truth, the day that it was time to go on stage, I was backstage and I'm like, okay, it's 40,000 women, but I've been here before. Like, I've been in a situation that was bigger than me, and I know that my Holy Spirit is here. Like, I'm telling you, my confidence in my Holy Spirit now, bro, like, you can't mess with me. Like, you can put me anywhere and I already know it's taken care of. So I was backstage and I'm like, okay, we about to do this. And normally I'm very nervous. Like, my stomach is always going, even though this is what you get. Like, when I get on stage, trust, beforehand, I'm sweating. But this time was different, y'all. Like, I walked on stage and it was 40,000 women, but it felt like 4. Like, when I tell you I was 101% Kayla, like, I was doing all of me. It really felt like intimate, like it's just me and my homegirls. And when I look back at the videos and the pictures, I'm like, whoa, that was a lot of people. But leading up to conference, we went on a 40-day fast. And I know that fast did something for each and every one of us that was a part of this, because we weren't even on the ground. Like, we was floating in the room. Like, for real, because I've never been that confident. And for it to be that confident in front of that many people in those type of situations, not to talk about like all of the things that happened. Okay. Because it was 101 things that happened. Like, I knew I had 4 30-minute pre-shows. Let's be clear. They're 30 minutes of me. Okay. And I have 4 of them. But then I ended up finding out I had like additional segments, and I had a segment with Jay Bolin, and I had another one that was like on the spot for Warner Brothers and Color Purple, and I had to like figure it out on the spot. It was a lot happening, but I was so confident. And I felt so at home. I felt like I had already been here before. I felt like I just felt good, probably better than any other time that I've ever hosted. It just felt good. It really did. I felt equipped. Equipped for the moment.
I love that.
That's good. So as we land, we love to ask this question just because hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to your younger self, to younger Kayla? What would you say to her if you could go back in time?
Oh, man. Stop stressing, babe. Like, it's really going to all happen the way you envision. Like, I put so much pressure on myself. And, we growing up in the social media age. And so I think that if I didn't have social media and I was only focused on my journey, I wouldn't have been so stressed or so pressed to do it all now. But because I had the opportunity to see so many people around me, I had my kids young. So while I had my kids at home, my girlfriends they're all in entertainment. So they're all like VPs of, Tyler Perry Studio and Warner Brothers, BET. Like, they're doing all of the things. Or my friends that were dancing are dancing with all the artists that I wanted to dance with, or who I thought that I would be dancing with. And it was so many moments where I felt bitter. And I had so much resentment because I'm like, God, I have a husband, I have kids. Like, this is just the truth. I have a husband, I have kids. I'm not able to do all the things that they're doing. And now I do have the husband and I do have the kids, and I get to do all of the things that God had planned for me. And so I'm so grateful that it happened the way that it did, because if it didn't, y'all probably wouldn't be talking to Kayla Wanakee, because I would be living some ratchet life. Okay, I'm gonna tell you now. Because where I was trying to dance, baby, wasn't where I was going. All right. I was trying to be all in the world. You understand me? Even when it came to hosting, like, Sarah kind of opened the door for me. But as soon as she opened it, then my eyes saw like BET, Entertainment Tonight. Like, I'm trying to be in this world. And God is like, come here, baby girl. You mine. Okay. All the way down to, I got to tell y'all this. I'm a dancer, right? My first dancing gig straight out of college, I wanted it to be Chris Brown. Do you know what my first dance job was, y'all, for real? The Clark Sisters. Who the Clark Sisters were?
I definitely see.
Oh,
and I'm like, they're like gospel royalty out here in these streets, okay? And I had no clue. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm hip hop dancing behind Dorinda, And it's going.
Oh my God.
So God always had his hand on my life. I'm trying to tell you. So I'm so grateful that it happened the way that it did. So I would tell my younger self, baby, it's going to happen better than what you are projecting for yourself. Just trust in the journey.
I love it. And I have enjoyed this
so good
conversation. First of all, this will not be the last time that Kayla and the Hardys connect, because this whole thing, we loved it. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Grow Black Leaders podcast. We appreciate you accepting our invitation. I know that our audience, they've been impacted by your story. I know it. Tell them how they can keep up with you. Some people may want to know, how can I follow her? How do I stay on her journey? If they're looking for you, how can they find you?
Absolutely. So I am on socials, everything under Kayla Wanakee, KaylaWanakee, on all social media platforms. I also have a website if you want to keep in contact with me, or if you ever want to reach out for any hosting needs or acting needs, any of those type of things, you can find me at www.KaylaWanakee.com. And yes, I was so excited to be here. And I didn't know you guys prior to this, other than like, stalking your socials. Okay. And now I'm like, listen, me and Christian, like, we got some stuff to talk about. Okay. Baby girl, hit me up anytime. I got you. All right. Because I know this journey is not for the faint at heart, baby. So if we need to pray together, if you just need somebody just to sit and listen, you need to rant, baby, I got you. Okay. I'm here. And I appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys reaching out. This was so good. I got to get to Louisiana.
It was good. We feel the same way, and we look forward to doing it again. I want to say to those of you who are tuned in with us today as well, thank you for giving us a portion of your day. We know in the hustle and bustle of life, it is hard to find the time to do anything. So the fact that you have sat and listened to this conversation, we are so grateful. Again, here at Grow Black Leaders, we exist to create a space, a community, an ecosystem where Black leaders can cultivate Black leaders. And we hope that we have inspired your leadership journey today. Until next time, continue growing. And we look forward to having you on the next episode of Grow Black Leaders.
Thank you for tuning in to Grow Black Leaders. Don't let your growth journey stop here.
Be sure to subscribe and visit our website, growblackleaders.com, and follow us on social media at Grow Black Leaders.